the chair of the Connecticut Historic Preservation Council, and I'm calling to order the meeting of August 4th, 2021 for the Historic Preservation Council. With me this morning are the following council members: Beth Ackley, Beth Burgess, myself, Margaret Faber, Leah Glazer, Kathy Mahar. Is Christine Nelson with us yet?
I do not see her, Tom.
Okay. Sarah Nelson, Sarah Sportman, Walter Woodward, and Ellen Zappo. We have a quorum, so we'll begin the meeting. The following is the Historic Preservation Council's format and review of public comment procedures. Given the online format of today's meeting, and for those who are visiting, I want to review and explain our procedures. Order of presentation. I will read each motion and ask that the motion be moved and seconded. Staff will present the agenda item to the council. Council members will have an opportunity to ask questions. If called upon by staff, a representative of the organization may offer statements to address council's questions. For members of the public who wish to speak to the agenda item, we ask that you identify yourself and your affiliation. After all questions have been addressed and statements made, a roll call vote will be taken. If members of the public have letters and/or written statements they wish to submit to the record, please email them to jonathan.kinney@ct.gov, and that is spelled JONATHAN.KINNEY@cp.gov. The Historic Preservation Council takes statements from members of the public but does not respond to questions. Lastly, please only address the particular agenda item being addressed at that time. The following is the Historic Preservation Council's policy regarding conflict of interest. The Historic Preservation Council votes on matters which provide leadership, service, and economic benefit to property owners, consultants, local governments, and not-for-profit organizations. Given this responsibility and to maintain the highest professional standards in the discharge of our duties, it is important to maintain a strong code of ethics for all council members and department employees. In order to avoid possible violations of the Department of Economic and Community Development ethics statement, it is necessary for the council to be aware of any situations in which there is a real, potential, or apparent conflict of interest involving anyone here. A conflict of interest may occur when a public official's participation in agency matters results in personal financial gain. All council and staff have been provided a copy of the Department of Economic and Community Development ethics statement and governing state statutes. Having reviewed them and today's agenda, members of the council and staff are now asked to disclose any affiliation with entities or projects that may create a conflict of interest as defined by agency policy and pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1-79 through 1-89, entitled Code of Ethics for Public Officials. Once disclosed, the member or staff may recuse themselves from that particular agenda item. Having read this statement, are there any council or staff members that would like to disclose a conflict of interest to any of the items on today's agenda?
This is Beth Ackley, and I worked on the conditions assessment for the Union Baptist Church, so I will recuse myself from that one.
Yep. This is Sarah Sportman. I need to recuse myself from the Pawcatuck Bridge project.
Kathy, are you going to recuse yourself for Simsbury? You're on mute.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was looking at the agenda. Yes, I'm going to recuse myself from the Simsbury discussion.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Recused members are asked to leave the meeting platform. Staff will send a text message when they may return. For council members being recused, please make sure staff has your cell phone number so they can communicate with you via text message. Next item on the agenda is the meeting minutes. The meeting minutes were put in the Dropbox Monday morning, so I want to ask, have council members all had a chance to review the minutes? Yes? Okay. So with that, we'll move on to a review and approval of the July 7th meeting minutes. Are there any corrections to the meeting minutes as presented? I know I gave Jonathan several. Are there others? Sarah?
Tom, and you may have passed this along to Jonathan. I just want to clarify that the minutes need to record all of the motions that were taken, and that the original motion for each of the applications is a vote to recommend. And in some of the agenda items, 5B1, 5B3, 5B8, the motion reads as a motion to table, which was the second motion of the day with those particular applications. And then on 5B11, it says that the motion was to deny, but the motion was to approve, the votes to recommend, so that the votes would be against the motion. So it's the reverse, I believe, of what's being put forth in the minutes. Just want to make sure that Tom and Jonathan, your recollection agrees with mine.
Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else?
Sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
One other thing that's not related to the minutes per se in terms of the format, it's on page 8 for the First Ecclesiastical Society of East Haddam. It's the top paragraph. Let me find that. No, second from the top paragraph. Ms. S. Nelson asked if copper had not been used previously with the current flashing material. And it goes on to say, Ms. S. Nelson stated that people sometimes do not want to work with it, and the reference in the minutes is to copper, but it's that they don't want to work with lead, and it is hard to get. So I just need to correct that. And my preference was for the original lead as opposed to uncoated copper, which is not as durable.
Thank you. We will definitely make those correct.
Johnson, you got that?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah. Anyone else? May I have a motion to approve? Let's see. Motion to approve the minutes as revised and submitted.
Yeah. I mean, did we make a motion? I'll make motion to approve as amended.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes. I'll take a roll call vote. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Beth Burgess,
Aye.
Abstain. Margaret Faber,
Aye.
Leah Glazer,
Aye.
Kathy Mahara,
Aye.
Christine Nelson, not here. Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Sportman,
Aye.
Walter Woodward,
Aye.
Helen Zappo.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is unfinished items from last month's meeting. We have 5 unfinished items, 4 of which are going to be tabled again so the applicants can put together more information to address our questions and concerns. And given that, I'd like to have a motion that brings the first 4 items to the table and then tables them accordingly, as we don't have any new information to discuss. But first I want to ask Erin if she's here. Are the dates that she's provided us still the same?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So then by a 2/3 vote, we can recall these items to the table and then table them again per the dates in the motion. May I have a motion to recall these items?
Tom, I'll make a motion and I'll read the specific language for each item. So I motion to table item 5A1, an HRF grant, Union Baptist Church in Hartford for the repairs to the basement and roof as a result of water infiltration. This item was tabled at our July 7th, 2021 meeting as per council suggestion. They applied for survey and planning grant. The application should be tabled to the January 5th, 2022 meeting. Union Baptist Church is applying for a survey and planning grant for item 5B1 on the current agenda, which is provide bid level plans and specifications for the roof repairs, and were requested by council members in the time for the next round of HRF funding. Item 5A2, HRF, First Congregational Church of Washington, Connecticut, for repairs and replacement of structural supports for the bells and chimes of the belfry on the meeting house. This item was last tabled at our July 7th, 2021 meeting per council's request for additional information. This application should be tabled to the September 1st, 2021 meeting so that their structural engineer can continue to revise the drawings and can consult with a specialty bell contractor as recommended by council. Item 5A3, HRF, Thompson Opera House, Torrington, Connecticut, for replacement of 6 condenser units with all new lines, evaporator coils, condensation drains, and plans. This item was tabled again at our July 7th, 2021 meeting as per council's request for additional information. This application should be tabled to the September 1st, 2021 meeting to give the applicant time to work on contractor documents. And lastly, 5A4, HRF grant, Mansfield Historical Society in Mansfield, Connecticut, to partially fund drainage repairs and improvements and water infiltration to both buildings. This item was tabled at our July 7th, 2021 meeting. As per council's request for additional information, this applicant should be tabled to September 1st, 2021 meeting to give the applicant time to continue compiling the additional information that council has requested.
Take a breath. May I have a second on that motion, please?
This is Sarah, second.
Just a second, taking some notes here. Okay, so with a roll call vote, Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Beth Burgess,
Aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber,
Hi, but I have a question.
yes.
So the numbers that were read for the item numbers are different than the ones that were printed on the agenda. I don't know if that's an important detail.
5A 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, and I have 5B. Does anyone else?
No, 5B is the new action items.
Oh, okay. Good. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
Sure, no problem. Leah Glazer,
Aye.
Kathy Mahar,
Aye.
Christine with us yet? No. Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Sportman,
Aye.
Walter Woodward. Walter?
Aye.
Ellen
Aye,
Zappo.
aye.
Aye.
Very good, motion carries. Thank you, Kathy. Next item on the agenda is 5A5, HRF grant. For the First Church of Christ Ecclesiastical Society in Simsbury. Aaron, I never received an updated motion. Do you have that you can read for us?
I do. I didn't
And
know what the protocol
before you
was.
begin, Erin, I'm stepping to, so it's officially recorded, I'm stepping out.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay.
Thanks, Kathy.
Did you need to call the previous motion and amend it? I'm not sure what the
Well,
protocol
by
is.
a 2/3 vote, yes, you're right. So, yes. So by 2/3 vote, we can recall this item to the table. May I have a motion to recall this to the table for discussion?
I make the motion.
Second.
There we go.
Thank you, Aaron. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
and this is a roll call vote to bring this back to the table. Beth Burgess,
Aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber,
Aye.
Leah Glazer,
Aye.
Kathy is refused. Christine's not here. Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Sportman,
Aye.
Walter Woodward,
Aye.
Ellen Zappo.
Aye.
Thank you, Ellen. All right, Aaron, now we're ready.
All right, so the new motion is agenda item 5A5. The Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend the award of a Historic Restoration Fund grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant is First Church of Christ and Ecclesiastical Society in Simsbury, Connecticut. The project is 28 historic double hung windows consisting of 14 on the ground floor and 14 on the second floor balcony, which will be repaired and restored. The new amount is $81,200.
Okay, may I have a motion to bring for discussion?
So
Oh, no.
moved, Tom.
Okay,
Margaret, second?
Sorry, was that Beth Burgess that was the first vote?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
and a discussion? Kathy's not here, so I'm hoping that someone else can lead the discussion.
Tom,
Yes,
point of order question.
sure.
You've got a primary motion, which was the original motion we're called to the table, that's on the table. And now you've got another primary motion. So you either have to defeat the original motion or replace the original motion. And so right now we've got two primary motions. So
Very good. True. Okay. So it will be easier to replace it? So we don't have to, do we have to do roll call vote for either one of those?
yes, so you have to approve the replacement, and then that becomes the primary. Then you discuss it, and then you vote on it.
Okay, now I'm really confused.
Okay. So you need to that first motion, you want to replace it with the
last
second
month.
motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody just said that they agreed to the second motion. So you can tweak the language with everyone's approval, unanimous consent, and say we're just going to replace this second motion, the new motion, with the first one,
Okay,
and vote to do that.
all right.
And then you can discuss the application.
Okay, so then what we'll do is we'll have a request for unanimous vote to accept the new motion to replace the old motion, and then we'll have our discussion. So going through the roll call vote again. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I would never have gotten that. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Beth Burgess,
Aye.
I'll abstain. Margaret,
Aye.
Leah,
Aye.
Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Sportman,
Aye.
Walter Woodward,
Aye.
Ellen Zeppo.
Aye.
All right, very good. So now we have a discussion on the new motion.
Okay. So First Church in Simsbury addressed the subcommittee's following questions and concerns. First, the proper protocol, training, and experience qualifications to safely test and remediate hazardous materials has been written and will be used in all bid documents. Greater detail was added to the budget and additional funds were added to cover necessary remediation after testing by an industrial hygienist. And then third, Kathy did meet with Mark Scully and I by Zoom to discuss her experience with hazmat testing of the windows at the Barnum Museum and to convey other points made by the committee. We are very pleased to find that the church has a very capable building committee that has put together a prioritized plan for a $3.7 million restoration that is now underway and will continue in the years ahead. I'm confident that the applicant will work closely with our office on this project.
Discussion from council? Questions? Aaron, I guess my first question is there a representative from the church?
Yes, Mark Scully is on.
So bring us up to speed with the potential hazardous materials and the potential drift that can happen, both as they are in place and or removed and worked on in their workshop. How are the hazardous materials going to be identified both in place and if they migrate to adjacent surfaces?
Great. Thank you. My name is Mark Scully. I am the chair of the Board of Trustees of First Church of Christ Simsbury and a member of our building committee. And while I do not profess to be an expert on these types of remediation issues, we have done some research with various contractors who do this work. And as Aaron Fink mentioned, our bid documents state fairly specifically the procedures that any of the potential contractors would need to follow, and they involve things like all of the protective equipment while they're actually removing the sashes, and the sashes are relatively easy to remove. There are these strips of wood on the side that are screwed in. You remove those, and then the windows can be taken inside. So we don't need scaffolding. We don't need any to take them outside. It's all done really inside, and that'll all be done, with all the protective equipment. They'll be put, wrapped in poly, taken back to their shop where, under very controlled conditions, including negative air, all of the protective equipment, as our bid documents will specify, they are to assume that the windows have lead paint, that they have asbestos, they have PCBs, and that so any potential contractor needs to be certified to be able to remediate and then properly dispose of the material, whether it has any of these bad items in it or not. They need to assume that it does. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Kind of. Are any of the windows painted shut presently?
There are a few.
And so that's both good, bad, and indifferent. With regard to working windows that have the asbestos and the PCBs, every time the action goes up and down, especially with the lead paint, theoretically there's minor scraping and airborne particles. So I guess my question is, what about the adjacent surfaces to the windows? Have those been tested? And the floor been tested?
Those have not been tested, no.
I would like to jump in. Sarah Nelson sent some very great materials from the State of Connecticut's website on testing PCBs. My computer's freezing, so let me know if I'm jumpy here. So she suggested hiring an industrial hygienist in order to test to see the materials around the window, because it sounds like you have to keep removing the materials until it the perimeter finally doesn't test positive for PCBs or other hazardous materials. Sorry. Lost my train of thought there. Anyway, so the industrial hygienist, I think, will help with that. And we did add money into the budget for that. I think they will be able to put forward a plan for safe removal of the materials and how to handle the surrounding services.
Okay. I have two hands, Sarah and Margaret. So go ahead, Sarah. You're muted, Sarah.
There we go. I was muting out my dog. Listening to Mr. Scully's comment about assuming PCBs, that statement has a huge dollar sign attached to it. So I just want to perhaps, start with your industrial hygienist. PCBs are primarily in caulk. It was primarily in caulk between like 1950 and 1970. The requirements for dealing with PCB are extraordinary. So review the likelihood that you would even have them. And be very careful about using that language in an affirmative way that it's there, because it opens up extraordinary liabilities.
Great, thank you.
Margaret?
Sort of along the same lines, just wondering if any of these hazardous materials have been actually confirmed, or you're just assuming all of them?
They have not been confirmed. We have not tested the windows yet. We had some detailed conversations with with some contractors, and they're I think some that are particularly well qualified. They basically, their approach is to, with great care and with protective equipment, get the windows out, get them into their shop where they can deal with it in a very controlled manner. Our approach was not to do the testing at the church, but to just get them quickly and safely to where they can be safely remediated.
Okay, yeah, only because I know that the lead paint assessment is relatively easy to perform on site. So, maybe you'll save some money if you do that. And also, I just wondered if you'd ever have a conditions assessment done on the building.
I'm not sure if I know what that means. We've been carrying out this, as Ms. Fink mentioned, a substantial project involving extensive maintenance upgrades. So I think that probably all of the work that the building committee did preparing for that probably qualifies as as a building assessment. I'm trying to think if we actually had a formal consultant or somebody do that. I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fine. I was just wondering. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay. Hearing no more, we'll take a roll call vote. We have a motion to approve the new application, the revised application. So Beth Ackley?
Aye.
Beth Burgess?
Aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber?
Aye.
Leah Glazer?
Aye.
Christine Nelson, still out. Sarah Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Sportman?
Aye.
Walter Woodward?
Aye.
Ellen Zuppo?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is 5B1, new action items is under State Historic Preservation Grants, item 5B1. The Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend the award of a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. Applicant, Union Baptist Church of Hartford, project consulting services of a 36 CFR qualified architect / team to prepare bid level plans and specifications for repairs to the roof of Union Baptist Church dated 1871, located at 1921 Main Street, Hartford, Connecticut. Amount of the grant request is $20,000. Beth Ackley, has she recused?
Nope, I'm just, for the record, I'm heading out.
Very good, thank you. All right,
Do
May
we
I have
have
a
Beth's
motion to
phone
bring this-
number? Excuse me. We do? We're good.
I'm
Okay.
sorry?
Just checking that we have Beth's phone number.
Oh, she's gone. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion, please? Sarah?
Kathy, motion?
Kathy, how about a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I'm sorry, Tom, this is Jonathan. Can you just let me know who the first and seconds on that again?
Yes, the motion was made by Sarah Nelson
Okay,
and
thank
the
you.
second by Kathy Mahar.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so I'll start the discussion. So staff does recommend approval of this application. As you all know, Union Baptist presented an HRF application at the July meeting. And there was a request for more detailed information on the scope. They have since, they are planning to come in to the January HBC meeting, but they have narrowed the scope considerably to just the roof issues, since that's the priority need. We were going to ask to have the match waived, which is possible upon request to the council. But actually, after consulting with the original architect who is not available to do the plans and specs, this project will probably cost more in the $40,000 range because of the height of the church and the possible need for a lift and all of that. So they will effectively be providing a match after all, which they do have in hand. I think that's all I have, but Angela Thomas is here from Union Baptist to answer any questions that I can't.
Mary, I have a couple questions, but the first one, based on what you just said, I thought I saw in the paperwork that the original architect was going to be doing.
No, there were two options presented. They weren't.
But that's no longer happening. Somebody
Yeah,
else
she is
is take it on?
correct. She is, and I think they offered alternative timelines based on that. So the architect that did the condition assessment is on leave, so she will not be able to do it. However, there are others available. Obviously, there's been no formal bidding process yet, so this will have to be competitively bid, which may affect the timeline, obviously.
So if it does, and the January meeting comes and they're not ready, we'll need to address it, that postponed HRF grant at that time.
Right, since you voted to table it to the January meeting, if they're not ready, that is correct. They'll have to be.
That's fine. Any questions from council members?
So Mary, it's Kathy. What a surprise. So I'm still going to lobby for a book on the 1938 hurricane, because here we go. It's another one. But I think we had something like that. Yeah, right. So this might not be totally necessary to what they're planning to do right now, but I'm just wondering, there were quotes that they had from 1938 about rebuilding the tower. It's massive. I mean, they gave it 20 tons, it's huge. But might there be any consideration to look for evidence of the original tower during this examination, in case there's ever a day where somebody says, hey, let's rebuild a 25-foot steeple. So I'm just wondering, is now the opportunity to take, Sarah's like, no way. No way.
Yeah, no, Kathy, it's actually the point, you know, absolutely, yes. But the time that you would really be able to discover this is when you're actually doing the restoration work and you've got more of the roof opened up and you can look for the framing evidence.
Yeah, okay.
So I would say during construction, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
And large pieces of the steeple are still in the basement where they will remain because they're so massive and we could not get them out unless we opened up the roof again and had cranes.
Unbelievable.
So Mary, considering what Sarah and Kathy were just discussing, I think the bid package needs to be adjusted to make sure that as-built drawings or existing condition drawings are created when that roof is opened up to document the structure.
Okay.
Because otherwise they'll just say, yep, there it is, and then go on their merry way.
Okay.
They'll cover it right back up.
Yeah, we can put that in the RFP.
And the last thing, I just wanted to thank the applicant too for a terrific preservation plan that was fully included. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions from council members? Sarah?
Yes, thank you, Tom. I may have missed this, Mary and Angela, in the application. Was there a specific enumeration of the things that you wanted to be studied in addition to the bid level plans and specifications? So, you know, for example, Mary, you alluded to a lift, which I think is very appropriate, but wanting to make sure that they remove some shingles to check on the soundness of the shingles in order to figure out what percentage of the slates can be reused, and the ties themselves, what condition they're in. So there's a little bit of investigation that would benefit the plans and specifications. And I didn't see that listed, and it may be something that you work through during the formulation of the request for proposal, but just wanted to give notice to those couple of things.
No, that's great because I mean, I wasn't at the July meeting, so I'm not quite sure. But if this ends up being selective replacement, obviously things like that will have to be investigated, and the substructure soundness. So we will definitely include that. No, that's the kind of input that's valuable at these meetings, so that we can develop the best RFP possible to get the best set of plans. So.
You know, the goal there, Mary, is to reduce the potential for change orders.
Right.
Any other questions? Okay. We have a motion on the table to approve this grant. I'll do a roll call vote. Beth Ackley is recused. Beth Burgess?
Aye.
I'll abstain. Margaret Faber?
Aye.
Leah Glazer?
Aye.
Kathy Mahar?
Aye.
Christine Nelson still out. Sarah Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Sportman?
Aye.
Walter Woodward?
Aye.
Ellen Zeppo?
Hi.
Very good. Motion carries. Before we go
thank
to the next one, I think this is an excellent example of how, by taking a step backwards, we actually help the applicant. So
And
congratulations.
I agree on that. Thank you so much. Because when we thought about it, we said, well, thank God you did that, because, you know, we don't know.
Right.
We only know what we know. And I appreciate this collective expertise and the guidance we've been given through Mary and Aaron.
Good. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, 5B2. The Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend the award of a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant, Town of East Haddam, project, archaeological survey to be performed at Chapman Falls, located in Devil's Hop Yard State Park in East Haddam. Grant amount $20,000. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
I'll move it.
And a second?
Seconded, Beth Burgess.
Thank you, Beth. Is Beth Ackley back with us?
I did text her, Tom.
She's gone.
Okay.
All right. Mary?
Sure. So staff does recommend approval of this application. This is a very significant resource for the town of East Haddam. This is quite a partnership between the local historical society, the municipality, other interested parties, and it offers the potential to yield a lot of important information. I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns the council has, but I'm hoping that our staff archaeologist, Kathy, is on the line to answer any technical questions that I generally have, difficulty with archaeology.
Margaret, is your hand up or is it up from last time?
No, it's up.
Okay.
All right. I just did a quick question about the budget. So there isn't an applicant share. Should there be?
No, this is one of the applications that predates that came in during the wave. There's going to be a number of those, probably through October. We had a pretty big backlog, and I believe that the council agreed to honor the match for applications that were received on time but just couldn't be scheduled.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sure.
So Mary, I've got a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and maybe they're quick answers. So I noticed there was no designation checked off. So is the site not under any National Register designation?
I think it's on the state register. That is, I checked
Hi.
that one.
Is that
It's
Kathy?
Jenny, do you want me to answer that?
Oh,
Please.
sure.
So I should introduce that. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I should introduce that I strongly encourage this project, and I want to commend Deep for being so receptive and helping to organize it. So this started because a resident with a passion for the history of this particular site requested National Register designation that has to do with the Revolutionary War history that occurred in the area that has to do with Beebs Mill. It's not designated right now, and the issue is that we can't do a state or national register nomination without more information. So there are archaeological remains on the site that have not been investigated, and they extend for a time period that goes much further and into other areas of significance besides just the Revolutionary War context. So I contacted Deep, and Deep got back in touch with the original person asking, and they formed this great partnership and got the town and the nonprofits involved. So that is why there's no designation right now, because the archaeological study has to come first. And Nick Ballantoni had volunteered. Al Lavier from Deep got in touch with Nick Ballantoni, and Nick got out there before he went away on vacation and made some recommendations as to where he thought the investigation should occur based on his familiarity with the site.
So that leads me to my second question, because if it's under Deep, and this is just, I'm all for the project, it's brilliant, but just to assure everybody that there's not a conflict of interest of DEEP actually filing for state money through another agency, just making sure that that's clean?
The request is actually from the community. But DEEP, I required DEEP to give the permission and to be involved because it is on their land and they are the managers.
Yeah, maybe we want to just add that. I know that there's support, but to add that someplace so it's really clear. Because my next question was actually in the checklist. It said 501c3 and it said contingent.
That's because they're a municipality. This grant is going to the town. To make things official, because it's within the town, because it's an important resource to the town itself. Right. They have an interest in what happens there, and especially so they are eligible to apply for the funding.
So that was my final question, that they're looking to create a 501c under a Friends advocacy group or whatever it is, so they can not have this question of DEEP funding SHPO funding DEEP projects. Anybody chime in if you want. This is just my.
No, I get it. I mean, as a municipality applying for the funds, they don't need to have 501c3 status. But if you're talking about future projects, Friends of Archaeology groups are eligible to apply.
Right.
And that's usually, and we have funded like Friends of the State Archaeologists. We funded projects for certain things that happened on state land. Yes.
Okay. And just out of curiosity too, is East Haddam a CLG?
No.
Oh, they should be a CLG. Okay.
I'm working on it. I've met with them.
So can I just finish out my last question? And I know Nick is on board and he's completely familiar with everything, but thinking of any type of indigenous people's material, the ownership there would probably have to go through and Walt, maybe you know this process more than I do, if that would have to be repatriated in any form and not just owned by the Historical Society, or how
Yeah, it all
just to make sure it's all done correctly.
Kathy could address this, but it all depends on what you find, right?
I'll jump in at this point. Last month, you approved a grant for Pequot Seapost to list Gunjiwamp. That is also DEEP property. So this is the same exact type of framework.
Oh, thank you. I did. Okay, thanks. All right.
So this is a common approach, especially for dealing with stuff on state lands that has huge public interest, is in a public benefit, will be publicly accessible. So that I think that's a really good example for how this is being structured. For this particular property, and I think the grant application talked about both the historic and the indigenous potential for the archaeology. Repatriation is really only something that applies to when you're dealing with sacred sites and burials, and it usually only falls under federal legislation. So Connecticut actually does not have any collections requirements regarding indigenous cultural heritage and materials. So there would have to be some very special triggers involved, which I don't see in this particular situation. However, it is a good matter of course to do appropriate consultation. And so when I work with the town for putting together their RFP, one of the things that will be in there, Connecticut is great because we have this mechanism, the Native American Heritage Advisory Council. It's the same mechanism we're using with Gunjiwamp to be able to speak with our federally and state recognized tribes in one location, and then identify individuals or tribes that may wish to be involved further. So that will become part of the RFP for whoever is hired to do the job.
So if needed, you'll work with them, NAGPRA will get involved, and it's out of, okay. Thank you so much. Excellent, Kathy, thanks.
You're welcome.
Kathy, thank you, Kathy. Walter, you have your hand up.
I am very much in favor of this, but I want to throw in a caution on the historical interpretation. It's more, I have been cited in the past as endorsing interpretations of this site, and it was used to some effect. endorsing a particular interpretation of this site that I thought was very much a stretch, and told the person who used the information that I thought it was. So I would, one of the reasons I am in favor of this survey is that it may actually provide some definition for the interpretations that are truly important. But what I would urge as a caution for everyone involved is to really take a close look at the data before you endorse particular interpretations, because there are some very passionate advocates of particular viewpoints involved here.
I think, Walt, you are speaking to exactly why Jenny recommended going along this route. And Deep deals with this all the time, passionate individuals who want to put up signage and take ownership over some historic story without having a really good foundation or evidence to work from. So I think that is why Jenny has steered Deep and the town towards making this first step. So now they can speak more intelligently and have the information to back up when they want to deny or approve something.
That's excellent.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, I looked at the grant application this morning. It does have a much broader area of study for the themes and the time period. So what I believe Deep wants to get out of it and the community is to really figure out what's actually extant on the site and from what time period and how was it used, because that's what we don't know right now. That's why a nomination of any kind can't move forward, because we just don't know what's there for sure.
Ginny, Kathy, Mary, how big is the area for this investigation?
I was not at the site visit. I don't know if I can answer that.
They did include a map in their grant application, which identifies the areas where they'll be doing additional investigations. And I have not, calculated the full area, but it's looking something like, 400 by 400, so 1,600 square feet. It's not a giant area, but it is going to require a lot of mapping and recordation and work.
So that's 3.5+ acres. Oh, it's a fairly good size. Okay. One question I have from reading the application is I saw the word development and future development strewn about in there. Can someone define that for me? What does that mean?
My guess, Mary, is what they're referring to is they're talking about putting in walking trails and signage and, public interpretative stuff. So not improvements, not developments when we think of shopping malls.
Right, not construction or,
Good.
and just a planning tool. Well, although it's Deep property, but there will be a lot of activity around this, just educating the public. And so this is why why they want to do this investigation.
Okay, great. Any other questions from council members? Beth?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, sorry, wrong Beth.
Oh, I can only see Beth Burgess.
Do you want me to go first, Beth Ackley? Okay. I had a question about the long-term preservation plan. It's mentioned at the checklist that it's included, but there's simply a paragraph talking about Deep as responsible steward. Is there more information that could be shared?
That is probably what they considered, it's obviously not a long-term preservation plan. But again, this whole investigation exercise is to help them make sound decisions in the future. Because again, just like an archaeological preserve, you want to do maintenance, but you don't want to do a lot of, messing around, for lack of a more technical term. Yes. So.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, I'll just add, good stewardship relies upon knowing what it is you're a steward of. And so this is the first step in that.
Agreed. Beth Ackley, you had a question? I see Sarah Sportman's hands up. Sarah?
Yeah, I just, building on some of the things that have been said about long-term preservation and also the potential for development, even small scale of trails and signage and things like that. Looking at the deliverables in the application for the report that's going to be produced, it doesn't look like there's any kind of management summary or recommendations for preservation going forward or dealing with the site. And I think that would be an important thing to include in the report. It kind of just ends with the results of the survey. And I think a management summary would be a useful addition to that, just so, we're tying all these things together and thinking towards long-term preservation.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Sarah. And I think when, I didn't see this grant application when it came in, but there are several details that really need to be improved in it, which I think we can handle within the RFP. And I do see this as the major part of the deliverable needs to be a planning document. So it needs to tell DEEP what good stewardship is going to look like.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Sorry. Okay. If there is no other questions or comments, we'll do a roll call vote. We have a motion on the table to approve this grant. Beth Ackley?
I missed that conversation, so I will abstain.
Okay. Beth Burgess?
Aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber?
Aye.
Leah Glazer?
Aye.
Kathy Mahar?
Aye.
Christine Nelson still out. Sarah Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Sportman?
Aye.
Walter Woodward?
Aye.
Ellen Zucco?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 5B3. The Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend the award of a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant, Town of Ledyard, project, consulting services of a CFR qualified architect and engineering team to prepare a structural and conditions assessment of the main sawmill dated 1869, located at 172 Iron Street in Ledyard. Grant amount for $20,000. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
Kathy, motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Mary?
Yep. So staff recommends approval of this application. This is, I think, a pretty unique site listed individually on the National Register. Only operational in the Northeast, possibly, the country, vertical sawmill. And this report is going to just be a very first start. It's to figure out just some of the structural assessment of the building, but also the historic components of it. So we do recommend approval, as I think it'd be a pretty exciting project to be part of. The representative could not be here to answer questions, but I will try to answer any that you have.
Questions, council members?
Mary, this is Leah. So yeah, I hear you about this being a initial first step. But yeah, I just want to encourage them to start thinking more as much about how they're going to manage this and interpret this for the public beyond just the actual technical preservation. right now I'm actually working on a project about interpreting energy. So this was really interesting to me. And just going beyond sort of the there's not much about understanding the use of the power source, the water, and that whole issue, and just making sure that they look.
It's a private home. Yeah, his office is on the side.
Oh.
You can pull up in his driveway. Yeah.
Leah, it seems like we got cut off. Is Leah still with us?
Yeah, no, I'm still here. I didn't know whether somebody was adding something, but just making sure it's it comes in a larger context. And I had written these comments on here. Oh, and just I don't know what the National Register looks like, you know, what they said about in terms of context and significance, but I would like that to be included. This is a really, really interesting and unique resource that I think just needs to be treated as more than a straight preservation. And I guess I was also looking to see, I know there's engineers involved, but are there industrial archaeologists? Maybe add something like that to the RFP, some consultation with people who really understand the historical context of this kind of feature and how it works and what it means. And
Yep. No, and I think they do. I mean, they this is a working sawmill that they're already interpreting, you know, to the public. It's already being programmed. And in fact, it's the mill workers that were identifying issues that need to be addressed, you know. But your comment about the understanding, you know, the power source is very interesting. And so, yeah, I think.
But that might be beyond the scope of this grant.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost sounds like, based on the discussion and the uniqueness of this structure, they might do well to get a historic structures report, including the landscape, in a combined document with all these other facets that we've been talking about.
And yes, that is true. And they can apply for multiple grants for that. There's an immediate need, you know, to address the structural and operational issues, but it's not going to end there. This is a really important resource for the town. And I think they definitely are taking a holistic approach. I think they are a little stuck right now on what the best consultant would be because of the uniqueness of this. But we will help them, you know, research qualified people for that. But again, this is
somebody with some more of a historical understanding of, you know, the context, other types of ways that people are doing this kind of work at the time, and what the primary energy sources are, you know, in that area and at that time period. And that's just, you know, an industrial archaeologist or a industrial historian, or just include that as, rather than just a straight engineer doing this work, like them to consult with somebody with more historically contextual minded.
Of course, yeah.
I agree. I think Tom Kelleher at Old Sturbridge Village would be a great historian to reach out to.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was the application was kind of all over the place. It was sort of like, what are they trying to do? So that's a good discussion, sort of zero in on that. But they should also think about, to Leah's point too, next step should probably be 3D mapping or virtual tours, something that's actually going to make this more accessible. It's great to have the historians there, but how are you going to deliver all of this? So finding ways technologically to give a broader audience the opportunity to learn about all of these bits and pieces of this very rare resource.
Or connect it to other resources in the state or in the area.
Yeah.
Just put it in context.
In the Northeast, I mean, you can do anything digitally. Yep. So I think that really needs to be a consideration now to get to the next step. That this isn't just a site interpretation. This is a bigger.
No, you're right. I think they definitely know that they have something unique, and I think they know a lot of what they have. But you're right. Kind of getting it in a fashion to really present it fully to the public is, obviously should be a part of the plan.
And I guess, Mary, just all I'm saying is just the tradition for this type of thing has just been all about the technology. And I just would urge them to look more broadly. Even working with sites like, the Eric Sloan and the Kent Furnace, with the state, because they're starting to do that. They're starting to connect with private partners to really understand that site more holistically and with more context.
Yep.
And I could chime in there. There are, and I know that this will be a state-approved structural engineer, assuming that's what the larger or the prime consultant is. But there are structural engineers that are adding some of that history and doing at least a base amount of research to help determine, what the structural technology was to put it together. So maybe adding in their RFP a little bit about that to drive home the point that it's not just straight, what's the capacity of this, what's deteriorated here. Mary, do you know anything about the, I think it was called the loft space or something that was added in the early 2000s?
I do not, that's mentioned in the application. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, and I mean, it's not necessarily going to sway a decision, but I'm curious if that was something historically appropriate, or just how that sort of fits into the whole picture.
Okay. Well, they can include a sort of that information in the RFP too, while they're introducing the project, and yeah, I mean, when we assist a grantee with a project, we do not want just a straight consultant coming in and just looking at it as an object. This is why we want to hire consultants that have a lot of experience with historic structures, whether it be a mechanical issue or a building issue, or so yes, we will expect whoever they hire to be a little bit more in depth in their investigation.
Mary, don't let the scope of the grant RFP creep too much, because you only have a limited budget here.
Right.
And what I don't want is a product that is so watered down it's not useful. And yet it covers all these different topics.
Well, exactly. And that is why, as long as we have funding, we like to, we welcome, repetitive, not repetitive, but subsequent applications. So you look at your resource and as this discussion has revealed, there are a lot of facets to examining this resource. And so if they can only, take care of the structural issues, they can come right back in for a grant to start looking at interpretive issues, or the programming, things like that. So there's, as long as CIA is in place, we can do soup to nuts for grantees. So
that sounds great. All right. Any other questions or comments from council? All right. We have a motion on the table to approve this grant. I'll take a roll call vote. Beth Ackley?
Aye.
Beth Burgess?
Aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber?
Aye.
Leah Glazer?
Aye.
Kathy Mahar?
Aye.
Christine Nelson is not here. Sarah Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Sportman?
Aye.
Walter Woodward?
Aye.
Ellen Zappo? Ellen's on mute. So motion, we have a sufficient for carrying the motion. The motion carries. This sounds like a great project. Is this open to the public? Can we go and see this facility?
yeah, in fact, I was making a mental note to myself that I got to get out there and as a public member. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 5B4. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a certified local government historic preservation enhancement grant funded by the Historic Preservation Fund of the Department of the Interior, National Park Service to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All federal and state grant guidelines and requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. Applicant, City of Stamford. Project, consulting services of a CFR qualified architectural historian to prepare a study report pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 7-147B for the proposed South End Historic District, grant amount of $20,000. May I have a motion to bring this table for discussion?
Kathy, motion?
Beth Burgess, second.
Thank you. Go ahead,
So
ma'am.
staff recommends approval. Stamford is a certified local government, obviously, and putting in place local legislation for the protection of historic resources is one of their basic duties, and they do that by once in a while proposing new districts and enacting local ordinances for their protection. So this is the local historic district, not a national or state register. This is going to be kind of a heavy lift for the consultant because of the integrity of the current National Register district. They're going to need someone that's going to come in and take a look at the boundaries and just help advise on what a logical boundary would be for a local district. Study reports generally don't cost $20,000. They're generally a lot less, but this is going to require a lot more hours and research and working with the local public to get the report in order. So I can take any questions or concerns or comments, and also Sue Halpern and Elizabeth McCauley are here, who may be able to or may wish to speak, on behalf of the application.
Okay. Sarah, I see your hand up.
Well, first off, I'm thrilled to see an application to study the South End. That's wonderful. And Mary, I just had a question, which is, do you have any sense, or do the organizers have any sense what the local level of support is? Because I know it's always, balancing boundary and potential support.
Yeah, and I think Sue or Elizabeth could answer more correctly, but that is something that we advise right from the get-go, is to get to gauge the temperature of the community, see who's interested, who's not interested, and work from there. Because we've seen, unfortunately, more than once the whole process go through and then get rejected at the end because there really wasn't enough public input along the way, or public education. But Sue or Elizabeth might be able to answer that question specifically. As far as that.
Go ahead, Sue Halpern.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for hearing our plea today. As you know, this is a very difficult situation here in the South End. We have a major developer that, has bought so much of the property around here, and there's demolitions going on constantly. And, we've lost almost half of our national registered area. We reach out to our neighbors. There are several of us that have been talking to homeowners here, and we feel that there are a number of streets in the district here that are interested, and hopefully as we reach out to property owners, that we could get more people involved. But the developer down here had sent out letters just over a year ago to all the neighborhood property owners against us having this local historic district. So, we have to deal with that pushback that we're getting. So whatever help, you guys could give us. I know you've really been trying to help us, like with the Blickensturfer and and these type of things. But we really have a passion to protect, what's left of. There's some beautiful homes down here, and a few still, industrial buildings and stuff. So we're hoping to get more support for sure.
And this is Elizabeth McCauley, and just to continue with some things that Sue had said, our neighborhood had always traditionally been residential and industrial. The industrial kind of stayed to themselves around the edges, along the water. Of course, smack in the middle, we had the Yale Town and the Pitney Bowes, but we were never under such a threat of demolition of our beautiful character homes. And we've tried to work with the developer to say, hey, instead of 25 stories, can we have nice townhouses for ownership? And anyway, these appeals go on, and they go back and forth. And while we, yes, have reached out to some of our community, because of those negative letters that BLT sent out, we really wanted to have our act together before we went to some of the other owners, where we had proper marketing materials, good postcards, a good pitch, so to speak, and we have a lot of language that we've developed to rebut what BLT has put out there. So we feel we have an additional challenge, so we're kind of operating a little bit under the radar until we can really go full force with our presentation and our public meetings.
Okay. Thank you very much. Leah, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I was thinking, and maybe I read it too quickly, but the original nomination was very, well, I wasn't sure what the period of significance was based on that original nomination, but it seemed to be focused on late 19th, early 20th century buildings, and I know that a lot of them have been destroyed. So I was wondering what the possibilities are of, while you're doing this local district, that it doesn't necessarily have to be based on the, or the National Register nomination could be rewritten to expand the period of significance, because now we're 50 years beyond when the African American population moves in and the Puerto Rican population moves in. And obviously there's a lot of concern about including different underrepresented groups in these districts and stories. And those are the people living there now, I assume. So just in terms of getting community more attached to the resources, adding new resources that could not make this seem such like a pilfered district, but make it more robust and more diverse.
Part of establishing the boundary does take the most cohesive group of buildings that reflect the history. It does not necessarily have to mimic the National Register. This will be a completely different designation, and so it's all about local protection, either because of architectural significance or historical significance, and so that's going to be part of the conversation. So that would be a very valid topic to introduce into the process for sure.
Yeah, just to make sure that it's not limited by that necessarily that the older theme or the time period that was done in the 80s when this original nomination was written.
Right. No, yeah, you're absolutely correct. And frankly, there's some loss of integrity anyway, so they're going to have to take kind of not a brand new look, but a fresh look at it. And just because of the age of the NR nomination, that's going on 40 years. There are buildings that have accrued significance since then that they would probably want to look at for whatever reason, history or architecture.
Yeah, Mary, this is Kathy too. I understand now why there's a $3,000 line item for postage. You don't see that in grants anymore, so I understand that now. I hope that they're considering massing a social media campaign as well to, push this narrative out to their residents. Because that will only just grow and grow and grow and grow. So people will start talking about it. But I understand now it's I don't want to say fight fire with fire, but if it's in response to former projects and a letter writing campaign by a developer, I get it.
Right. And because of the size of the potential district, there just are a lot of people they need to contact. And, the pandemic, the shutdown has necessitated both mail, but also it has also opened up the opportunity for social media. So it's just a little different to navigate right now. But
but if they could consider trying to see what that looks like on all platforms and just get that going.
Exactly.
Mary, considering the size of this area and the complexity that you've described, how long do you anticipate this to take? How long will the consultant? I mean, is it a year-long project?
I don't think so. No. So the consultant would probably come down at least, do the initial site visit. That's going to be the most time-consuming part, is to trying to determine the boundaries based on, contiguousness, because they have to be contiguous and they have to be continuous, and encompassing the most number of significant properties it can. I think a lot of what adds to other processes like state or national register is the required additional research or just timeframes. If once the study report is completed, it would come to us on one of our Wednesday HPC meetings. But there will be additional research. That's why the budget is reflecting a lot more for the consultant, just to do the updated last 40 years, and identify new resources. But no, it should not take a year. 3 to 6 months, I'll say.
Oh, okay, great. Are there any other questions or comments from council members? I see Susan Halpern has her hand up again. Susan, you're on mute if you're trying to say something.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My hand was up from before.
Okay.
I just want to say, I know this is going to be a challenging effort, but we've really been, for the last 2 years, we've really been trying to put this together, and we hope we can, get somewhere with it. Really been trying hard, as Mary knows. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Then if there's no more questions or comments from council members, we'll take our vote. We have a motion to approve this grant. I'll take a roll call vote. Beth Ackley?
Aye.
Beth Burgess?
Aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber?
Yes, aye.
Finger up. Leah Glazer?
Aye.
Kathy Mahar?
Aye.
Christine Nelson's not here. Sarah Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Sportman?
Aye.
Walter Woodward?
Aye.
Ellen Zappo?
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries.
Great, thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 5B5. The Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend the award of a Partners in Preservation grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. Applicant, Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation, doing business as Preservation Connecticut. Project Circuit Rider Program SFY 2022 in the grant amount for $296,300. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
Motion, Kathy?
Second?
Second, Margaret.
Okay.
So staff recommends approval of this application. The Circuit Rider program has really developed over the last couple of years to, in addition to just being the public face, being out there in the community and just assisting with a variety of preservation needs and issues. Preservation Connecticut has also provided more specific support that SHPO has needed. So we are really happy to present this application and ask for approval. Jane Montanaro is here, who probably wants to present, but I can also answer any questions or comments or concerns.
Jane, do you want to say anything before we ask questions?
Sure. As Mary said, the last few years in particular, this program has really been a nice, strong partnership with the SHPO office. And I'm really grateful to SHPO staff for not only being supportive of the program, but really encouraging the development of it. This past year with the pandemic, we've seen no slowdown in any circuit rider activities whatsoever. And we were able to bring one circuit rider to full-time last year. And I anticipate bringing a second circuit rider to full-time this year. And then also we have the addition of an archaeology position, which we're really excited about bringing that on board. So the Circuit Rider program is really thriving, and with the support of the council and the SHPO staff, it's really been a successful and impactful program for us.
Great. Questions from council members?
Jane, it's Kathy. Just
Kathy.
wondering, hi, was there anything that that COVID sort of forced that turned out to be a benefit? Like doing Zooms, were you able to reach more people, or was there an efficiency that COVID presented that you're going to hang on to?
Well, for being able to Zoom into public meetings with municipalities where folks would have to set aside travel time and go all around the state, we're able to participate in a lot more public meetings this past year because they're all being held on a Zoom platform. And then we started a noontime chat program of just various preservation topics. And that was really well attended. And we saw every week, we just saw the audience grow. And it was, different people showing up all the time and based on the topics. And we were able to bring in experts from a variety of preservation fields to just talk about their work and share what they do, and just really trying to build that ethos of preservation in Connecticut. And I think that program will maintain that going forward.
That's great. Well done.
Thank you.
Jane, I have a couple questions. I think the Circuit Rider program, it's a fantastic program, and I think it's really unique in how it reaches out to so many different people and projects. I'm curious about the consulting archaeologist. I was under the impression you were, quote unquote, contracting with a consulting archaeologist. You just made it sound as if you were bringing a part-time archaeologist on staff. Can you just explain a little bit about what your plans are or what you're thinking?
Yeah, so for this year, we're looking at bringing on a full-time consultant to get the program started. We'll be working really closely with the SHPO staff and how this archaeologist position will work. And this, I anticipate, will grow into a circuit rider position, but we're just getting the program off the ground this year. So for budgetary purposes and for oversight, I set it up as a consultant for the first year.
Are there people in Connecticut that would take that on, or is this going to be somebody from outside the area, do you think?
I anticipate someone in Connecticut, but we're going to put the job posting out there and see who we get.
Mhm. Okay. The other question I have for you is, I was going through your budget, and it all made sense to me until I got down to Technical Consultancy Fund / SEPA for $35,000. What is that?
So the budget that I presented to you this year is really closely related to our actual expenses from last year. And last year we spent $35,000 on consultants. So particularly for cases that we're working with the SHPO office for SEPA, Preservation Connecticut hires directly the engineers, architects, hazmat, code, anybody that we need to bring on the team for SEPA, we pay those costs directly through the Circuit Rider program.
Gotcha. Okay, great.
Jane, I have a question for you. It's Beth. And you may have covered this before, but being new, I'm curious, I know some other states have Circuit Rider programs. And as you developed this, was that modeled, and maybe Connecticut was one of the first. I mean, what's the history of it? I know Massachusetts does, and that's on the newer side.
Connecticut was one of the first, but the actual birthplace of the Circuit Rider program was Vermont with Paul Brune. He was a real trailblazer in setting up these programs. So it initially started as a partnership with the National Trust.
Okay.
And the funding from that went away, and our state office jumped right in, and they've been supporting it almost the whole time. And so the Circuit Rider program has been around for 20 years now.
Wow, it's a real asset to the state. It really is. It's pretty amazing. Thank you.
Just pop in. May I just pop in and say, I just want to shoot out kudos to Jane and the staff and to our SHPO staff, because in the last 3 to 4 years, this program has been discussed thoroughly, revamped, revetted. Outcomes have been changed, expectations have been shared, and I think the program right now is, as I said to Mary when we were reviewing the application, I think we're finally there. SHPO is getting such a good value for the funds that we are expending on this project. There is no one else in the state that could assist us in the way that they are doing. So, that's my perspective from the last 4 years. You guys know that other staff can give you further perspectives, but I'm real happy about this.
Bravo.
Yeah. Any other questions from council members? All right, we have a motion in front of us to approve the grant. I'll take a roll call vote. Beth Ackley?
Aye.
Beth Burgess?
Aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber?
Aye.
Leah Glazer?
Aye.
Kathy Maher?
Aye.
Christine Nelson's not here. Sarah Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Sportman? Walter Woodward?
Aye.
Ellen Zappo?
Aye.
Sarah Sportman, are you still with us? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you, Jane, for all you do.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Next item on the agenda is State Register of Historic Places nomination. New action item. State Register nomination for the Pawcatuck Bridge Historic District, 1 Cogswell Street / 5 West Broad Street, numbers 25, 29, 34, and 38 West Broad Street, Pawcatuck, Stonington, to the State Register of Historic Places. The Historic Preservation Council votes to list the Pawcatuck Bridge Historic District located at 1 Cogswell Street / 5 West Broad Street, 25, 29, 34, and 38 West Broad Street, Pawcatuck, Stonington, to the State Register of Historic Places. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
Kathy, motion.
And a second?
I'll second. Sarah Nelson.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning. This is Marina Wisniewski. Staff recommends approval of listing of the Pawcatuck Bridge Historic District located at 1 Coswell Street, alternatively 5 West Broad Street, numbers 25, 29, 34, and 38 West Broad Street, Pawcatuck, Stonington under criteria 1 at the local level as a remaining portion of a 19th and early 20th century commercial industrial neighborhood formed along the Pawcatuck River. The area of the bridge extended beyond the proposed boundaries that you see today. The proposed district is the most cohesive cluster of resources, and collectively they retain sufficient integrity of location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association to convey the history of the area. The nomination was commissioned by the town of Stonington, which also sent a letter of support that you should have. The Stonington Historical Society also provided a letter of support. A public meeting was held by the town on June 24th for information about the nomination. No letters or emails in opposition were received by me at the time of this meeting. James Sexton, the author of the nomination, is here to help any questions you may have. And I will say that this was a project that's been in the pipeline since about 2018, when we were contacted by a property owner within the potential district who was concerned about trying to retain the integrity of their property while also conforming to FEMA flood guidelines. One of the reasons designation was being sought, and one of the reasons they had the support of the town, was that you are able to apply for certain exemptions for FEMA flood guidelines or alternatives to help meet those guidelines while maintaining historic integrity.
Thanks, Marina. Any questions from council members?
This is Leah, Marina, and James. I was just wondering, since it's criteria 1, I was, being a historian, I guess I just want to see a little bit more, less description and more like context and actors. I'm not, it mentions industry a lot, but I'm not sure what kind of industry. And it mentions like, again, I'd like to see there's a mention of a water power source, and I'm not sure what that's for, mechanical or electrical, and what kind of industry it's fueling. And just a little bit more about who the settlers are, who the people are. I guess I'm just looking for a little bit more robust context in here. I'm still unclear on what this kind of looks like, or what the history really is, especially since it is not, it's mostly because for community development and historically based in terms of people assessing integrity and those sorts of things.
Okay. So what you're more interested in seeing is you have a question about the water source?
No, I just want some more specificity. I want to know what kind of industry. I want to know what kind of.
Yeah, so I think a lot of that is actually within the context of the Mechanic Street National Register Historic District. So the nomination mentions that this area is in between 2 National Register districts. We did consider, was there a way to loop in this area to either? But we did have an issue with, integrity, and then we had an issue with, actually having the boundaries be able to incorporate it in the case of the Mechanic Street. So the Mechanic Street does have that context. So what we could do is we could reference that nomination and use a couple of excerpts from it. Right. To discuss that. And then, that also has a discussion of the workers who go to the mill, the worker housing. This is really the commercial area that ended up serving that population. And then on the other side, we can also tie in, so this is in Rhode Island, but westerly, their downtown National Register District. Again, we also consider perhaps we could link it to that one. But again, that integrity issue really didn't have that threshold to be able to reach over the bridge. And as you read in the nomination is, that neighborhood really grew up together on both sides. It's just that on the Pawcatuck side, it didn't, the changes that had happened it meant that basically, we couldn't do a multi-state kind of nomination, which is something that we thought of early in the process. to try and see how we could incorporate it. So what we have here is really that limited commercial remnant, but we can certainly reference both the Westerly and the Mechanicsville, and that way that can also provide some further reading or sources for those. We could do that.
Yeah, I think it's important to bring it in, particularly because you said, yeah, it is across state, and it just doesn't, it reads as an amendment nomination rather than an independent nomination, especially if you don't know all the other pieces.
Sure. Yeah. So we can be a little more detailed in the nomination when we say, please, the reference to Mechanic Street, because that has a really nice context about the industry there, and it's also, it has a great discussion of the houses, because the Mechanic Street does have that big cluster of the industrial mill, but then it's also, it's also a good representation of worker housing. So this does tie into that, and we did explore that. It's just unfortunately, the rest of West Broad Street, after having gone back and forth, is that section in the middle really doesn't have enough integrity. There's a lot of infill, and then there's a lot of empty lots that, we really couldn't incorporate.
Marina, building off of the discussion that you're having right now, I'd like to see a map illustrating those other two districts and this one in a single map, so that when someone's reading through this, they can see the relationships between the two and know where they exist.
Yeah, we could do that.
I would find that helpful.
Yeah.
Because one of my questions was, is there a way to attach this small district to another? And
yeah,
what I'm hearing is no, not really, but
we tried. We did.
Right.
Yeah, we tried, we did, and it's just hard because of the integrity. And as I mentioned, we've been working on this since 2018, and we tried, different kinds of ways to, to really make sure that we could express this importance. And as I mentioned, when we had the public meeting, the public support, was great. One of the buildings is a condo and some mixed use on the bottom, and so, I was expecting perhaps some, reservations or, some questions about it. But at the public meeting, what we got was support. And, this area is full of people that really enjoy this area, and they really want to try to help maintain that character, but they're also acting at a bit of a disadvantage because of these floodplain guidelines. And so this will, so we were trying to find a way to make sure that we could document the history, make sure that it was eligible under this program. And this was really the only way we could do it. But I think the map is a great idea, Tom. And Leah, I also think it's a really good idea to reference both nominations, and we can kind of use excerpts and tie that all together.
Yeah, thanks. Because when somebody does get challenged, they'll at least know where to go to understand why it's a violation of whatever they're proposing, if it's going to harm the resources. They need to know why. And so I think that's fine. That's a good solution. Thanks, Marina.
Yeah, no, I think that works.
Any other questions from council members? All right, we have a motion on the table to approve this grant. I'll take a roll call vote. Beth Ackley?
Aye.
Beth Burgess?
Aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber?
Aye.
Leah Glazer?
Aye.
Kathy Mahar?
Aye.
Christine Nelson's not here. Sarah Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Sportman, I'm hoping she recused, stepped out. Walter Woodward?
Aye.
Ellen Zappo?
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Next item on the agenda is threatened properties. SEPA updates from Todd. Todd's on the line.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I have two updates. One is that the Office of the Attorney General did not pick up the widening of the road in Stamford. So in Stamford, we had the threat to 650 Atlantic Street. We had the threat to 79 Garden Street and the threat to 130 Henry Street. 650 Atlantic, the Blickendorfer, also triggered a Section 106 review under EPA. So we worked out an agreement where they're going to keep all but 5 bays and then rehab the building with consultation with SHPO. So the Blickendorfer is being saved, and it is the best scenario considering the contaminants. But the OAG did not pick up the deal for the widening of the road. I thought we could win. I advised that we did move forward, but instead, what we did get is $100,000. You know, we were negotiating for 150 plus listing the 2 buildings on the Preservation Connecticut's Historic Properties Exchange for 3 months. They declined to do that, but the Attorney General did get or is in the process of getting a donation of $100,000, which is going to go to 100% of that is going to go to the south end of Stamford for owner-occupied historic preservation projects, and it's going to be administered by Preservation Connecticut. Jane and I are working out the details now.
Todd, what does that mean by did not pick up the road widening?
So our charge is to provide a prudent and feasible alternative to demolition, which I thought we did. You know, we demonstrated that a complete street, their argument was they wanted a complete safe street. They said you have to have it 2 ways for it to work in this particular location. We argued you could do it with 1. So we provided that prudent and feasible alternative, but it wasn't enough to spur a lawsuit ultimately. And that is you know, entirely within the office of the Attorney General's purview. They can decide to pick it up or not, and they decided not to.
Gotcha. Okay. And the second item you mentioned?
Yeah, and the second one is SEPA Norwalk with one old highway road, I think it is. Andy Glazer. This was from, let's see, May. And he had withdrawn his demolition application. We just got a call from their new building official that he's back. He's got a plan, and he may have to pull a demo permit again. If he does pull the demo permit again, it goes straight to the OAG. So I don't know where we are. This just came in this morning. So, you know, we're going to, I already reached out and talked to the new building official, and she's going to talk to her planning people and then get back to me.
Great. Thanks, Todd.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda is report on State Historic Preservation Office. Jonathan?
Good morning, everyone. 2 quick items for you. The first being some legislative update. House Bill 6547 passed, I believe, earlier this year. I believe it was in June. This bill required DECD to form a historic preservation working group to explore tools and resources that municipalities, historical societies, and nonprofits can use to further preservation in the state. As I said, we've been charged with sort of putting this together. We're coming up with a list of names of appointees right now to suggest through our legislative liaison. The ultimate decisions on appointments will be up to the legislators, of course. But that is, we're looking to convene that at the end of this month or the beginning of September. And we are charged with producing a report that will outline those tools by February. So I will, as that moves forward, I will keep you apprised of the discussions and how that's moving along and anything that results from that working group. The second item I had was just a quick update on our return to work situation. Last meeting I had reported that starting July 1st, we would be transitioning back to the office. That has obviously changed. There was a disagreement / lawsuit between the unions and the state, and that has resulted in a basically a pushback of that entire process for the next 2 months until the beginning of October now. It seems like most people will probably be continuing their telework with occasional trips to the office as needed, but we'll have additional updates as that moves forward. It's a constantly changing situation as we adapt to this new world. So as I said, I will keep you updated. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Next item is report on museum properties. Liz.
Hi, everybody. So it's nice to be back. It's been quite a summer at the museums. So just as a reminder, all except Prudence Crandall, which is still closed for restoration, have been experiencing visitation that equals or exceeds the visitation during the same period in 2019, which is making everybody a little crazy, but very happy. This is partially thanks to the Connecticut Summer at the Museum program, which is supporting free entry to children 18 and under accompanied by one adult. So this is a program we're actually running out of not the SHPO office, but of our division office. And it does seem to be really spurring an uptick in visitation to museums across the state. Thus far, the 3 of our museums that have been able to open safely. We're following up-to-date COVID guidance. We've only had really issues at Newgate, where unfortunately, because of the loss of a seasonal staff member, the visitation has been so high that we've temporarily closed the museum on Mondays, and I'll talk a little bit more about those visitation numbers. We just didn't have the staff and volunteers needed to open safely. And finally, just in general, as I announced in June, Mike McBride, longtime curator at the Henry Whitfield Museum, retired on July 31st. And, his contributions to the museum are innumerable, and he is to be commended for his dedication and service. Nearly 30 years, I think maybe over 30 years. But I'm happy to report that Michelle Parrish has assumed his role and is doing a wonderful job. And it's been nearly a seamless transition due to the professionalism of the staff. So, and staff support for one another, which has been terrific. So a little bit more specifics for each museum. I am less happy to announce that work is not yet completed at the Prudence Crandall Museum, and this is mostly due to issues surrounding the paint contractors, which I spoke about in June. They seem to be unresolved, and DAS, the Department of Administrative Services managing that project for us, is continuing to navigate the situation. Joan DiMartino, curator at the Prudence Crandall Museum, and I are continuing to work with scholars and community members to create an exhibitive narrative for the reopened museum. And this is really exciting because recently we've decided that we need to look at the interpretation as one that's constantly in process. Instead of sort of, here's the permanent exhibit, and then maybe there's changing exhibits, we want to be looking at the permanent exhibit as an exhibit that is constantly changing, based on input from our visitors and input from scholars and stories that we're discovering as we do more research. So we're beginning to look at what that is going to look like as a permanent interpretive storyline. Now that the construction is nearly done, however, Joan is in the planning to move the collection from the storage boxes located on the property to various locations. And what I can tell you is that very little of the prior items on display in the exhibits will be included in the new interpretation, because only a teeny tiny fraction of the collection are specific to the house and to the Crandall story and to the direction of the new interpretation. It is going to be very specifically focused, not sort of about education in general. So this is a really exciting project, and we think we're doing a new approach in interpretive planning that will have a new kind of ramifications for the museum field. And we'll be talking about that, presenting that and some of our other interpretive work at the in-person still ASLH conference in Little Rock, Arkansas in September. The museum has also partnered with the town of Canterbury and will be installing a bench with a plaque as part of the Toni Morrison Society's Bench by the Road project. And the bench will be placed in memory of Sarah Harris, Julia Williams Garnett, and the other young African-American women who were educated at the Crandall Academy. We expect that the bench will be delivered in September, and we're going to do sort of a not a permanent installation, because we don't know where it's going to go depending on what work remains on the house, but we intend to do a celebration sometime in late September, but early October. So as I mentioned, visitation at all the museums is up, but the Sloan Museum is hopping and the gift shop is selling out. We're having that problem both at Newgate and Sloan, that we can't keep items in the gift shop. The guided tour that's now being offered of Sloan's studio is really popular, and we think that's directly related to this unprecedented number of books that Eric Sloan wrote that are available in the gift shop, but never moved out the door in the vast quantities that they have moved in the that they're moving now. We've had a mold issue in the tool exhibit, and we're going to be purchasing new dehumidifiers to help combat that issue. And really, it's that the old ones still work, but they're so loud that they can't be on when the visitors are in the museum. And we've just had a rainy, humid summer. And so staff has been hard at work trying to mitigate mold. In exciting news, curator Andrew Rowan has been deeply involved in a project happening across the United States crafts community to build and send a wooden truss that will be used in the actual restoration of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. I mentioned that he had spoken to folks who were involved in the restoration, and they had had some virtual conversations. They sent, as a gift to the Eric Sloan Museum in honor of Eric Sloan, an axe that was used to begin to do some of the hewing of the handmade materials used in the reconstruction in France. But he's made recently 2 trips to the DC area to work, because the United States is sending a truss to Notre Dame, to work on the construction of the truss using the axe that was sent from Paris. And then he's back just this week when it was raised on the mall actually for display. And Connecticut is very involved in this project. Nevin Carling, who is a Connecticut carpenter and a Sloan volunteer, climbed the completed and raised truss to put what is known as the Good Luck Pine Bow at the top. So Andrew has been doing a lot of social media on these 2 trips. And he's made a lot of connections in the hand tool and carpentry community in the last year. So we're really excited to see how these collaborations are bringing the museum some global attention. And just in case you did not know, Eric Sloan is a big deal in the global hand tool community. So things that we didn't necessarily know. And then, as I mentioned before, visitation at Newgate is really up. We're reaching over 100 people are coming in on the weekdays, and over 300 on the weekend days. And that's the 300 on the weekend days really is the kind of visitation we had when we were having special events, 300 to 500. So Morgan Bengal continues with a strong social media presence, that's the word. And we're waiting to see what kinds of programs we'll bring back to the museum in the fall, and that depends a lot on what the COVID situation looks like. The biggest issue that Newgate is now facing is a series of water tests indicating excess levels of certain bacteria. We haven't had to close the museum. It's not getting into the bathrooms and the drinking water or into the well, but it is showing up in the well testing. It seems to happen, and because when there are long periods of heavy rainfall, we've had to do some mitigation for E. coli, but now there's even other kinds of bacteria. So unfortunately, all the efforts to correct the situation that are sort of easy have failed, and it looks like we're going to have to add a significant water chlorination system on site, which is estimated to cost between $20,000 and $40,000. We're working very closely with the Department of Public Health to address the issue. They have been amazing, but solutions that are sort of normal, like, dig a new well, are really limited because of the nature of the underground mines and caverns and the archaeological sensitivity of the site. So our hands are a little bit tied. So we're moving forward on looking at what that is going to cost and finding out more details about that system. And then finally, the Henry Whitfield Museum hosted a Make Music Day Eve performance on Father's Day, which was in late June, but over 150 people attended an outdoor celebration. And visitation at that site has been steady, with a lot of out-of-state visitors who are saying they're stopping because of the highway sign on I-95. So I think we're really seeing a resurgence in traffic. I live off I-95. There is a resurgence in weekend traffic. Michelle Parrish has been working to get proposals and funding in place for some of the updates needed to the various systems at the house and in the visitor center that will start after the museum closes. And I did want to just touch, as I mentioned, Mike McBride's retirement. You may be wondering, are we going to fill that position? What's going to happen? I have 6 positions for the for the 4 museums. And I am going to refill Mike McBride's position, pending approval from the powers that be, but I think it will be approved. But I'm looking at a slightly different position. Instead of an additional curator at the Henry Whitfield Museum, I'm going to be looking to hire essentially a curator of education for all 4 museums. And what that position will cover, what that person will do will be to work to kind of create a unified presence for the school programs for all 4 of the museums. And they'll interface with teachers and the Department of Education, things that we've all started, but it's really hard to talk about how we're all linked when all of our partners end up working with different staff. So we're really looking to offer school programs that are unique to each site, but that are branded in a way that makes sense to teachers and to other partners. And this person will also be doing some presenting of programs virtually and on site, and they'll be sort of a floater. So they'll have an office at a location to be determined depending on what's convenient for them and what we need. So I'm really excited to move forward on that position. I think it's something that we've needed for a really long time. So that is my update, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
Question with regard to the water at Newgate. Is it just the potable water, or is it the drippings down in the mine as well?
So what's happening is that the water that comes into the building for all of our system is being affected by the huge amount of runoff that's coming through the mine. That is what we suspect. So while we've had sort of low level problems that we could address before with blue light filters, which we did last year, that particular, and it's working for E. coli, but it's not an approved situation or solution from the Department of Public Health to address the increased bacteria of other different kinds. So yeah, would it have happened and be a pressing need if we hadn't had a wet summer? Probably not, but because we've had a wet summer, it has now become a pressing need. DPH has agreed that they're not going to issue us any citations. They know we're trying to get it fixed. So, and they were on site. So it's created a really nice partnership with an agency that we haven't worked with very closely before. So that's the good. You know, there's always a silver lining.
How is the barn coming across the road at Newgate?
How is the barn coming across the road?
A couple months ago.
How is the barn? Yeah, sorry. I was picturing the barn coming across the road. Because we've started the summer season, I think right before the summer season was ready to start, Morgan had created a really nice, cleared out much of the downstairs of the barn, and moved or sort of rearranged the space. So right now, and then the season came in. So we will, once the season is coming to a close, she'll get quotes. I think the heating is working. So we did test the heat in the building. So that's really good news. The next thing to move forward on, I think, is going to be the electrical systems are good. The next thing is that there is plumbing out there. There's a bathroom. And so we need kind of a complete redo of the bathroom. Because it's like rusty and it's not going to function. So that's the next thing to move. And then we'll be able to regroup and probably open the building with the doors open for use for programs as needed, but not with the doors closed. We'll have to do some things inside to meet fire code with the doors closed. So we could use it because it has big sliding doors. We could potentially use it as a kind of a shed kind of a program area, but in order to use it as a closed-in winter space, we need to do some interior work for the fire code.
Gotcha. Great.
Liz, do the tunnels in the mine flood at all when it gets?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we had to close the mine. The mine was closed for the week that it was the first week of July. I was actually away. But yeah, we had to close. It was, Morgan said it was unprecedented what was coming into the mine. Unprecedented, understanding that I've only been here for 4 years and she's been here for, basically the same amount of time. So in our recollection, we hadn't seen that level of water. I'm sure it's not unprecedented, but yeah, lots of water, totally unsafe to go down.
Wow. And does it drain on its own or do you have to pump it out?
No, it drains on its own, which is kind of amazing because it's such a network, of tunnels and, lime, just the way the geology is. So it does drain, and it doesn't take that long, really, but it still leaves a mark.
Great, Liz. Thank you. Any other questions for Liz? No. So Liz, you talked about extraordinary visitation. Kathy said her facility is closed. Beth, what are you getting for visitation at your facility?
Thanks, Tom. The Stowe Center's doing pretty well. We're open Thursday through Saturday right now. We will expand to include Mondays, excuse me, in September is the plan. But all of this is dependent on how COVID goes with this variant. Visitation's good. We've transitioned to an online ticketing system, so you have to buy ahead of time, which really helps us staff appropriately. Without that, it would be so much harder. So I give great props to my director of programs and visitor experience, Amy Huffnagel, for managing that situation. But in terms of COVID cleanliness and keeping that all going, it's a lot easier only being open 3 days. So there's some, it's always a continual discussion, but yeah, the visitors are back.
Good, good. All right, great. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is liaison with public and private agencies. Jane Montanaro, and Mary Favi.
I think we have new business, Tom, if there's any.
I don't have any on my agenda. Is there some that I missed?
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure it was called, so it's in the recording.
Gotcha. So Jane, Mary?
Sure, this is Jane, Montanaro Preservation, Connecticut. I just wanted to let you know that we announced our next photography contest. So we're encouraging folks to get out and photograph historic landscapes in Connecticut in anticipation of the big celebration next spring for Olmsted's 200th birthday and as part of our ongoing Olmsted in Connecticut survey program and doing community outreach and some programming around that. So we've been getting a great response for that, and we'll be promoting that. We'll, like we did with our Barnes photography contest last year, we'll have a jury and voting system, and we'll do gallery visitations. We'll have the show will travel around the state like our Barnes photography contest has been doing as well, and it's been a really popular and fun activity. And we're looking forward to seeing all those wonderful landscape photos come in.
I'm a little partial, so that sounds great. Is Mary with us?
She is here, Tom. She did email me earlier that she did not have anything else to present, though.
Okay.
So, I don't know if she's just stepped away.
All right, that sounds fine. We'll catch up with her next month. So that's it. Well, public forum. I don't have anything on the public forum. If the public has anything, then I'm going to bring the meeting to a close with the announcement. Our next council meeting is Wednesday, September 1st, 2021, 9:30. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Kathy, motion to adjourn.
And a second?
Margaret, second.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Jonathan, these are getting tiring.